Hey everybody, this is Evan Rogers. One of my students came to me with one of these, sent me a photo, and this is the photo that you're looking at. It goes all the way down. And I thought it'd be fun to just talk about this a little bit, give you a little bit of a taste of Japanese, and actually a little bit of a history lesson. So here we have one of these memes, I guess they're called, where, oh wow, look at that, and then it gets crazier, crazier, and then it goes kaboom or whatever. How super awesome it is. The first one is whatever these three countries are. I think that might be Greece. I don't know. You got me. Whatever. I don't know my flags. It says creating an alphabet for your language. Okay, great. Cool. And then I guess bigger brained or whatever the joke is with this is creating an alphabet for your language and then deciding to use a cooler one some other people made up. So I guess that must be German, the UK, and then whatever the heck country that is. Okay, so, and then it has these countries, I guess China and whatever that is. Instead of creating an alphabet, just make a letter for every word in your language. So these countries, that's kind of true. Not really true, but it's kind of true. There's 6,000 kanji or whatever. I don't know how many China uses, but, each one kind of has its own meaning. And then it's like Japan is the super crazy big brain one. Not having an alphabet for your language, stealing one from your neighbors, and then using it in the wrong way. Then also creating two new alphabets for your language and using all three at once. Okay, that's fairly accurate, actually. That's fairly accurate. I just want to talk about Japanese. Indeed, they did not have their own alphabet. I mean, they're not really alphabets. We should call it a writing system, but they didn't really have their own writing system for a long time. It came over 200, 300 AD. So, I mean, imagine your country doesn't have, Japan's an old country, an old civilization, so to speak, on this island or series of islands, and they didn't have a way to write anything down until somewhere around the year 300, give or take. China finally sends. They didn't really steal it, so I want to talk about how they didn't steal the language. They were trying to, trade with Japan and China a whole bunch. They were trying to trade with each other. China, actually, one of the first the first time that we see a name for Japan is actually the land of Wa, is what China called them. There's a stone pillar, I think, somewhere that calls them the land of Wa or something like that. And actually, they use the word Wa, the character for Wa. So Chinese has quote unquote a letter for every single word in its language, and that Wa that they used apparently meant something along the lines of midgets, small people, little people, whatever the term is. I'm not trying to offend anybody, but basically China was calling Japan the small people, the midgets. So it was the land of tiny dudes. That's actually where that wa in Japanese gets its name. Now, Japan, if you watch the history of Japan, Japan decided to change the wa from midget people to. I'll try to flash the kanjis on the screen. They they changed it from midget people to harmony and peace, something like that. So that's where the wa comes from. They didn't change the pronunciation; they changed what the character meant. Anyway, they didn't really steal it. Buddhism, China introduces Buddhism to Japan, and Japan is more than happy to accept it. So they had their quote unquote their paganist religion, the Shinto one. That sort of you'll see shrines to rocks and bears and stuff like that. So it was. I mean, I don't know how else to call it other than a pagan religion. I'm not trying to degrade it or anything. It's just that is, I think, the best description for it. And then when Buddhism came in, they're all excited because Buddhism equals technology. Basically, China was, it's called Chugoku. It's the middle country. So it's everybody wants to trade with China. Even Europe was trying to trade with China, right? And then the Opium Wars and all that sort of stuff happened. And then, yeah, that's why it's called Chugoku. Everyone wants to trade with them. They have the technology. They have the technology. They have the power. Okay, so they didn't really steal the language, they just very much more borrowed it. Now, the issue is there was no hope at all for Japan to quote unquote use the Chinese writing system properly. The language of Chinese and the language of Japanese are so incredibly different. There's no way to do it. There's just no way to square that circle. I don't know enough about Chinese to discuss the particular differences, but the thing is that think about Japanese. Surely you've learned by now at least a few verbs. Like just think about the word, I don't know, ikimas, our go-to verb. Ikimas can be ikimas, ikimasen, ikimasen deshita, or just the plain form, or ikaremashita, ikasemashita, ikanai, iku, iko, ikimasho, all of those different forms, right? But the ik sound in the beginning relentlessly does not go away, right? So ikimasen. But however, one part of it does go away. We lose the K sound when we do the te form, ite. I I'm actually curious, this is just a side note. Side note. I wonder if the old way of saying ikimas was actually ikte. Like, I wonder if that K actually stayed there, that K sound right there. I wonder. I don't know. I wonder if, 1,000 years ago it was actually there. Anyway, it became ite. So anyway, pretty much that's the way Japanese works, right? The meaning is ik. And then everything after that changes what's happening to the verb. It changes if it already happened, if it will happen, if we're doing a passive voice, if we're talking about able to go, if we're talking about somebody was gone, all of those different changes to the verb happen after the meaning of ik. This system is called agglutination, where you have the meaning of something and you add, or I guess for you guys, it'd be you have the meaning of something and then you add suffixes to the end of that meaning to generate different changes to that original meaning. So go can turn into don't go. Go can turn into could not go. Past tense, can, negative, right? Go, past, or actually what? It'd be ikemasen, right? Ikemasen. So that'd be ik for the meaning, ike potential, so able to go, ike. The ma right here is going to be I'm being polite to you, so ike ma sen would be negative, and then past tense would be deshita, right? So we have the meaning, potential, polite, followed by negative, followed by past tense / perfective. So do you see how that works? We have meaning followed by a bunch of other stuff. This agglutination system, I should make a video about it to explain it better. I might actually have one already. This agglutination system does not exist in Chinese. They have a completely different way for dealing with verbs, right? So if their way of dealing with verbs is different than have the meaning followed by a whole bunch of random sounds that changes what it is, there's no way to use the Chinese writing system properly. I mean, there's no way to do it. Plus, China's telling you that these characters have a meaning and they have a reading, right? Japan is like, the meaning for eat is actually taberu or ku, depending on which one you want to use, right? So they have the meaning, that's universal. The meaning of a character is universal. Like, we could take the Chinese characters and throw it into English and be like, make that character mean eat, right? But Chinese Buddhists are telling you that it means shoku. And you're like, no, eat means taberu. Or even in English, we'd say eat means eat, right? So the problem is that you want to read the Buddhist texts, which are written in Chinese, so you're memorizing the Chinese system of reading it, and then you're going to apply it to your own language, and you're like, well, it is shoku, but also it's taberu, so what do we do? This issue is what causes this. It takes centuries to finally square the circle where they just say blah. They just produce katakana and hiragana. I think katakana came first, and it's quote unquote the feminine language. I have to double check on that, but I'm pretty sure. My understanding is that katakana came first because the girls, I think, realized how dumb it all was, and they just made up their own slurred writing system, and it became katakana. And then hiragana came later. And then the fact, you're used to katakana being for borrowed words. I'm pretty sure that's actually a quote unquote a recent trend in the writing system. If I'm not mistaken, using katakana explicitly for borrowed words from other languages, I think that's within the past few hundred years, as opposed to the 2 millennia ago, right? 2,000 years ago. So that's recently new in Japanese. Relatively new. Okay, so I wanted to talk even more about that. Not only did they create 2 new alphabets, but then they wanted to be friendly with the Americans and the Europeans, right? The European ship came to Japan. I think it was 1462. 1562, 1542. I forget my numbers. It's right around the 15th century, 16th century. And this ship gets blown off course, lands in Tanegashima, is this small island. And these dudes wearing crazy clothing, and they have weird colored hair, and they have giant noses, and they smell bad, and they have weird food that they want to eat. They show up, and they're like, Christian, blah, blah, blah. And then people are like, we don't understand what you're saying. And then they're like, oh, we also have these things that shoot loud noises, and they kill birds. And Japan was hooked. They wanted those guns. They didn't really want the Christianity, but it went hand in hand. Anyway, they wanted to get this new technology. Notice that. In order to get new technology from China, they learned the Chinese language. And now, in order to get the technology from the Europeans, they start introducing this Romanization of their language. Europeans come over there. They want to know how to read and write everything, so they create a Romanization. So if you think about it, not only did they didn't steal, they learned kanji, and then they bastardized kanji into hiragana katakana, and then these crazy blonde people showed up who had these cool guns, and they're like, we should probably learn some romaji, this romanization. Roma, Roman characters. Ji, Roman characters. And so they actually have 4 writing systems. And that might even be an understatement. They have the kanji, they have their hiragana and their katakana, and then they also have romaji. So this joke, which I think, it's pretty funny. It's like, oh, we made our own language. Oh, we made one, but everybody hated it, so we used a different one. This is more accurate to what Japan did with they didn't even have their own alphabet, so never mind, this isn't even that accurate. And then this one's like, they made an alphabet, and then they just, each one has another thing. So this one where they say that they stole an alphabet, and then they bastardized it into creating 2 new alphabets, and then they use all 3 at once. They also use romaji, just it's less common, right? I mean, you'll go to Japan and you'll see romaji. And if there's that Dogen video, I highly recommend it, the Dogen video, where he talks about how Japanese is slowly turning into weird English. I think the video title is Extinction, and then it's like Goku's fighting, and Frieza's English slowly killing off Japanese, and then Vegeta's like, please. Anyway, that's actually kind of true. I mean, if you look at it, the language is slowly becoming Englishified, right? And I'm even in the grammar, you'll find grammar points where it's becoming English. So, just going further, Japanese is changing again. My original point is that not only is it that they borrowed, quote unquote, stole, they didn't steal it. They learned a foreign language writing system, and they bastardized it into 2 new ones. But on top of that, they're borrowing another one on top of that, the Romanization system. So technically, they're not using all 3 at once. They're using all 4 at once, okay? And I thought that was pretty interesting. And it's getting so crazy that their language is changing to become more English. It's very fascinating, very fascinating. I saw this meme. I thought it was pretty funny, and actually, this meme was sent to me by one of my students. I thought it was pretty funny, and then I wanted to talk about how this isn't even completely, like, it's more ridiculous. It's more ridiculous. So anyway, congratulations on trying to learn one of the craziest writing systems. When you go on to Reddit and you're like, people are like, which one's more difficult to read and write? What language has the worst or the most difficult writing system? The correct answer is probably, or one up in the top 10, is Japanese. And when you say that to somebody, some people are like, no, every language is more difficult to learn than every other language, so they're all equally different. And objectively, that's nonsense. In Japanese, you need to learn romaji, you need to learn katakana, you need to learn hiragana, you need to learn kanji, and then those kanjis have doubled, there's numerous oddities in each kanji. I mean, the kanji for number 1, like just shunk, it can be read as ichi, it can be read as hito, it can be read as like tsui for tsuitachi. There's numerous readings just for the easiest kanji. So I just want to talk about, last thing I want to say is just that Japanese really does have, I think objectively, I don't know every language, but it's really up there in the objectively difficult writing systems to learn. So good luck, everybody. Keep studying. Have a great day. Peace. If you enjoyed this video, I'd love it if you like, subscribe, and share this video to everybody you know and yell at them repeatedly until they subscribe as well. If you'd like to support me even more, head on over to patreon.com where for just $1 a month, 3 cents a day, that's it, it's darn near free, you can help me financially keep these videos coming. And as a reward for your Patreon donations, you get access to all of the miscellaneous things that I produce to help out my own students who I teach in person, and also just things that I make for myself. And if you want a little bit more bang for your buck, head on over to Teespring, where you can get lots of fun clothing, mugs, stickers, cell phone cases, all that I've designed. More designs to come. I hope you have yourself a happy dappy day. Peace out.